What's up, plant people? How's it going? Happy Tuesday. Or I guess it doesn't have to be Tuesday. Happy whatever day you are listening to this podcast. That is the beautiful thing about podcasts is they're evergreen. Just like a tree, just like a wonderful Leyland cypress that grows majestically in your yard. Podcasts are evergreen and they are there when you need them and when you want them. So I encourage you to listen often and regularly and to encourage your friends to do the same thing. I'm trying something new today. It's a small change, but I'm talking at you before you hear any jangly happy music. Is that too much? Are you not jangly and happy enough to hear my voice yet? Tell me what you think. I'm still dialing in the way I want to run this podcast and the way that I want things to sound, and your input means a lot to me. So tell me what you think. Drop me a line, write me a review, send me a message on the FaceSpace or the InstaSnap or the Gramstagram or whatever it is that you're on these days. Okay, have I rambled at you enough? I think I probably have. I'm glad to have you with me today. This is Vikram Baliga. I am the host of the Planthropology Podcast, and we are on episode 4. We've made it to episode 4, that is. Today, I interviewed a friend and colleague of mine, Russ Plowman. So Russ is an instructor of horticulture here at the Texas Tech University Department of Plant and Soil Sciences. He leads our floral design program. He's a researcher on ornamental plants. And just a really cool guy. He has done a little bit of everything in the plant world throughout his career. So I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation with him. A couple more housekeeping things. I hope you are, like I mentioned, reviewing us and rating us and giving us feedback on anywhere you can and everywhere you can. I really want to hear from you, and I want to make this a show that you like to listen to as much as I like to make. So whether you're listening on Stitcher or Apple Podcasts, or I don't know if you can review on Spotify yet, but that's coming eventually, or CastBox, or wherever else, rate, review, tell your friends. You can even review us on Podchaser, which is a new cool service that's kind of like, as they say, the IMDb of podcasts. So you can see where your favorite podcasters have been guests on different shows, what they do on their show, and everything else. You can kind of get the credits for your favorite podcast. So review us, rate us, share us with your friends. But without too much more preamble and ramble, which is a thing I like to do well, here's episode 4 with Russ Plowman of Texas Tech University. Again, thanks for listening. Glad to have you with us. All right. Well, thanks for being on, Russ.
Well, you're welcome. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So, tell me about yourself. Tell me what you do here at Texas Tech. You know, I kind of introduced you a little bit in the opening, but I'd like to hear, your role and what you
I am an instructor here at Texas Tech University. I've taught principles of horticulture 1411. I teach floral design right now. I got it accepted as a core curriculum class. So we have students from all over the university taking that class. I've also taught arboriculture and garden center and nursery management.
So, pretty much everything.
Yes.
In horticulture.
Yes.
I've done a little bit of everything.
I have.
So, so that floral design class is super popular. It seems like, I don't know if there's a waiting list, but it seems like there's always people that are trying hard to get into this class. How did that start?
We do have a waiting list. It started a long time ago as an elective. And so it was offered every other spring. We always had 20 students in it, and it was a 2-hour class.
Okay.
But it was so popular, and I knew that we could do a lot with that. And with departments growing and expanding, I wanted it as a core curriculum in the fine arts. And so Cynthia McKinney, Dr. McKinney, and I worked to get floral design accepted as a 3-hour core curriculum in the fine arts. And once that happened, we went from 20 every other spring to 60 every semester, and then we've been up to 120 per semester, and now we're kind of stabilized at 80 a semester, 80 students per semester.
I mean, that's a lot of students. That it feels like a lot of students.
It's 240 credit hours in the fall, and then 240 in the spring. We do offer it in the summer, and I do have every intention of working to have it be able to be taught entirely online as well.
Wow, that's cool. I think that'd be really cool. And, that's an interesting thing because when I was in college, I think I don't even remember what I took as a creative art, but it was something like art history, I took the history of landscape architecture, and that counted as a creative art too. But is this the only hands-on creative art, like as a core curriculum course, or are there other ones you can do where...
They really don't even encourage hands-on for the creative arts, because really they just want you to think about it and not actually do it, because then it's kind of a craft. They really want just the thought processes that go behind creative arts. So I do believe that we are one of the few hands-on creative arts.
Yeah, instead of just like the idea of art.
Right. We have a 2-hour lecture and a 2-hour lab for a 3-hour class.
Okay. Well, and it seems like the students that come through here and do that and really enjoy it. They seem to really enjoy it. And in fact, like looking out my window in my office, there's a group of floral design lab students walking out in the hallway to do design. So that's pretty cool. So what, I think we'll talk a little bit, and we may come back to circle around back to this a little bit, but what got you into horticulture? Because you've done... a lot in the industry, from landscaping to floral design and a few other things. So what got you into it? How did you get started?
I was born into horticulture. I always just liked horticulture. It's not that my parents were into horticulture. I just started digging and planting from the day I was born. I just had to do it. I had to be out in the yard. I had to be planting marigolds. That's the earliest memory I have. Sure. And supposedly I was less than 2 and was planting marigolds.
That's pretty cool.
So
that's pretty cool. Well, and that's so like a desk job just never cut it for you.
I would never know.
No, you never had one.
This is as close to a desk job as I've ever had.
Yeah. And it's really not like...
No, you can ask my students. It's not for me.
Sitting around and... No. Well, no, and I know you're out here at the greenhouse a lot, working with your staff and, just doing things out in the
at the farm.
Yeah, just anything that's outside and not... Not sitting behind the computer screen.
Not sitting behind the screen. No, can't do it.
So just as far as your career goes, you started off like... in it early, like young, and have spent your whole life doing plant stuff in one way or the other. But what did you do for a career? How did that...
Well, my first commercial enterprise was when I was 12. I had a greenhouse and a vegetable garden, and I grew plants for Strike It Rich BW Nursery in San Angelo, Texas. And then when I was 14, I went to work for them.
Wow. So yeah, like literally a lifetime of like a plant business.
Yes.
So what kind of plants did you grow? And like, did you just like build a little greenhouse in your backyard? What did you do?
We had a shed and we built a lean-to greenhouse on the next to on the side of it, but it was 20 by 16 feet, so it was pretty good size.
Yeah.
It was heated by kerosene heaters in the winter.
Okay.
So every morning I had to get up at 2 to go refill the kerosene.
Wow.
So that things wouldn't freeze. I did a lot of petunia baskets, Swedish ivy, airplane plants, all of that. But then in the vegetable garden, I did a lot of the yellow pear tomatoes. They were popular back then. So I grew tons and tons of those.
Yeah. I was trying to think, like, I don't really know what I was doing at 12 years old, but it was not running a business. Or getting up at 2 in the morning.
Yeah, I was getting up at 2 in the morning to relight the kerosene heaters and growing horticulture crops.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty. I mean, like, and I've myself, we've talked about this a little bit before, but like I've always been into plants. Again, some of my earliest memories were, gardening with my grandfather growing up. But like that's, I went a different route getting into college initially and ended up here, but that's pretty cool. So, that's, I guess, where you started. Then now you've run a landscape company for quite a while, and you've run a florist shop. Is that correct?
Yes. I stayed with BW Nursery for a long time, and then I went and did lawn maintenance for the highway department, and then actually looked at working for the highway department in their roadside beautification, which was getting real big in the late 70s, which is when I was doing this. But I decided to come to Texas Tech, got involved with Ed Zukakis, and worked with him on his interior plant maintenance. And then I graduated in 1983, and there really wasn't a lot of opportunity out there for recent grads, and so I decided to go to graduate school. And so I worked with Dr. Carol Robacker, working with tissue culture. But in the meantime, Dr. Mary Helen Camp introduced me to college flowers. And at College Flowers, I met a lot of influential people. And so I ended up buying College Flowers with a business partner, Kelly Marble, in 1985, 86.
Okay. Yeah. So that kind of like hits several different parts of this industry. And it's interesting because I think that people think about, I don't know, horticulture is, I'm not sure people do think about it a lot. It just out in the world, but it's such a big field, and there's so many things you can do in horticulture that, like, I don't know, maybe we do ourselves a disservice sometimes by not, like, having this conversation, right?
Right, and not promoting it and not saying that it is horticulture, and not showing people all the different aspects of it and the way that it can be involved in their life. Like the whole idea of horticulture and floriculture in Europe is way different. People are surrounded by flowers and plants all the time, and out here we tend to think of it as something for special occasions.
Yeah, like you go and you get a floral arrangement for a wedding or a party or whatever, instead of it being
every day.
Yeah, part of your life. And and I don't know if that's a West Texas thing or a United States thing or what. I mean, I think it's definitely a West Texas thing, but I don't know if it goes farther than that.
I think it does. I think it goes further than that. I think it's more of a United States thing. I think, we're not that old as a country, and everybody had to struggle, and everything was work oriented, and a lot of times we don't think about the luxuries, the small luxuries. Yeah. And being surrounded by plants and having cut flowers is kind of small luxuries that a lot of people don't think about that really can have some nice impact on your life.
Oh, sure. Well, and, they've done studies at a lot of places that, having indoor plants or indoor color or things like that is great for your health and, your mental health as much as anything else. But yeah, and I think we think of, and it's interesting because I think we think of like, oh, I'm going to go buy flowers and I'm going to spend however many dollars. Flowers are not cheap. Like, arrangements are not cheap, but people can grow their own flowers. I think that's a big thing, is people should be growing their own gardens and flowers.
Well, and what's funny is if they're growing them frequently, they're not cutting them and taking them inside.
Right.
And most of our flowers, if you cut them, then they grow right back. And so you can't cut them to the ground, but you can cut the blooms off, enjoy the blooms inside, and still have the plant outside and have it growing, producing more flowers.
Well, and deadheading is a very common practice, right? Where your flowers get spent like outdoors on the plants, then you go and cut off but we wait till they're dead, right? Like,
and you don't have to wait till they're dead.
No, you cut them whenever.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's better if you probably, or at least, you can get more utility out of them. And I think in the U.S., we don't spend enough time out in our landscapes and out in our gardens. We kind of, that's out there. And we treat it like, I think this may be a bit of a tangent, but I don't know. I don't think so. I think that we treat our landscapes a lot like a burden and our gardens a lot like a burden instead of a opportunity or a part of our home. I mean, is that something you saw a lot when you were landscaping, that people just didn't want to do it? Or
yeah, And I see it more and more. Everybody's like, I want a no maintenance garden, and there is no such thing.
Right.
You have to take care of it, but it shouldn't be a burden. No more than anything else is that we have to do as human beings to live in a society.
Yeah.
And having a lovely yard is just so nice to go home to.
Yeah. Well, and I think about like the quote unquote like chores or house things I have to do. I would much rather go like work in a flower bed than do dishes.
Our laundry.
Oh yeah, laundry's the worst.
I hate laundry.
Well, and then like, you take it out and it sits in a chair till forever.
Yeah.
Till forever.
Yeah. Not only do you have to wash and dry it, but you have to fold it and then you have to put it away.
Yeah. I pretty much just don't. I've just given up. I think it moves from like the bed to the chair and then back to the bed, and depending on where I need to be. Yeah, no, I don't. I'm pretty bad at that. So I'm curious too, like, so you've taught a variety of different classes, and we teach a lot of students in our department. In the horticulture group for sure. So like, between your class of 80 to 100, around 100, 120, in our introductory horticulture class and entomology and all the other things, we're teaching in horticulture and related fields, hundreds and hundreds of students. Like, why do you think that some of our courses are so popular? Like, what is it that's drawing all these like non-majors and people from around the university to come be a part of it?
I think they can see it working into their life. I think that they can see a benefit for it in the future. Some of the people that take floral design are going to be involved in a friend's wedding and they want to help with the flowers. You see a lot of people taking horticulture because they're going to be building a new house, or their parents are building a new house and they want to help with that. Definitely with all the pollinator studies out there, everybody's interested in that and people are wanting to find out about it. So that's why they take entomology. Yeah. That's what I think.
Yeah, well, and this is very much a practical field, right? Like, everyone has to take a science credit, whether you're a history major or an art. It doesn't. Everyone has to take science credit
and fine arts
and I think about it, and like, nothing against our chemistry friends out there, but like, I would rather take a hands-on like plant lab than intro chemistry. Again,
any day.
I'll probably get a nasty. Assuming anyone listens to this, I'll probably get a nasty email eventually. But
but there's chemistry in everything that we teach, and the students that see that and get interested in that can then go on and get more involved with the chemical applications of things that we do.
Well, that's very true. And I think...
But the plant is the basis for everything.
Yeah. Well, it is. Life in general.
Yeah.
Without plants, we don't exist.
It doesn't matter.
Life does not exist. And people are like, well, I don't really eat that many plants. Well, yeah, but your hamburger does.
Yeah.
Like, your food eats plants. It's the bottom that's a base of every ecosystem. If you like breathing or eating, you should care about plants.
You should care about plants.
And with all the discussion about, without getting political about it, all the discussion about like climate change and all the things that go on, learning about how to maintain plants and maintain ecosystems, which we do talk about some, is pretty important. I think it's kind of a big deal. So I want to talk a little bit about like some of your experience with being an educator, because you've done a lot. And I think we talked one time about some of the work you've done in like how to, I'm probably going to say this wrong, but like how to motivate students or how to help them be more successful. You were talking about a presentation you gave one time. Tell me a little bit about that.
Motivating students is one of the things that I work hard at every day, is trying to reach them and figure out what it is that they need out of this class, or what they need out of life, or what I can do to help them learn. And every year it seems to be either harder or different, or what worked last year doesn't work this year. So I try a lot of different things to motivate students. When I teach, I do a lot with PowerPoints. I do a lot with interactive learning. I'll flip the classroom where they come in knowing the subject, and then they'll teach it to each other, and we'll do roundtable discussions. So we don't just sit in the class and listen to a lecture. It's
right.
Very interactive, even the lecture part, as well as the hands-on. They'll learn about the Egyptians and the Romans making and wearing wreaths in ancient times, and then in lab they'll make a wreath. They'll make a headdress.
Right.
So actually they can see what we've talked about coming to life. But still, it's hard to motivate students because they have so much going on, and just one more thing seems to them to slow them down. But sometimes I think slowing down and enjoying what you're learning is really important.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And you've been teaching a little while now. So have you seen, and I think this is something we maybe talk about in education, of how the college student has evolved or changed perspectives over the past 10 years or so. Is that something you notice, that it's like you've had to update quite a bit to keep?
Yes. We're seeing more and more students coming from urban centers, and so they don't have quite the basis of gardening understanding that a lot of our West Texas students would have had, or our small town people would have had. Even FFA, you see FFA changing a lot now, and floral design is very big in FFA.
Yeah,
they can do it in the municipal cities. They can do it in Dallas. They can do it in Houston. They may not be able to grow or raise a hog or sheep, but they can grow flowers, and they can use flowers and do floral design. So San Antonio, the stock show rodeo, has offered for 2 years now, so this year would be the third year, floral design competition, and they award the winner a $10,000 scholarship.
Wow.
To the university of their choice.
That's a big scholarship.
That's a big scholarship for taking an exam. The kid that won last year had only competed 5 other times, and so that's the same amount of money for the student that raised a hog.
Oh yeah,
and spent months with that.
Months and a lot of money.
And a lot of money, and maybe that won their first hog.
Yeah.
There's a lot of students that don't win. Now, we did have over 400 entries in that, so he was 1 in 400.
But still, I mean, you think about like how big like you said, the stock show industry is in Texas. It's an industry. I'll call it that, or the stock show world.
Yeah, the syndicate.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, or something. Yeah, no, that's maybe not a bad word for it. But yeah, so the fact that you can study for a test, learn a little bit about floral design, about plants, and do just as well is a big thing. It's a real big thing. Well, and I just think that if you look at the university or like horticulture programs nationwide, the focus is changing some, I think, and we're losing some programs entirely. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you feel like we're in a dying field? Do you feel like we've maybe lost perspective a little bit?
That is a definite yes. And the reason is because applied horticulture is not valued the way that it should be. Mm-hmm. Applied horticulture, where you've got someone that knows how to prune a tree, an arborist that knows how to take care of that tree, where you have someone that can grow the plants. That is not being funded at university levels. It's not being appreciated at university levels, and it's not being taught anymore at university levels.
Right.
So you have all these people that are into the molecular engineering or the genome mapping, or looking at anthocyanins or whatever is in the plant.
Sure.
But if you don't have the person that knows how to grow the plant, then it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But nobody is interested in funding applied horticulture.
Yeah. Well, it's really tough because, when we do talk about, basic versus applied science a lot, but yeah, those programs where you take the practical lab sciences like you're talking about and actually, there is an art and a science to how you put a plant in the ground. from seed to everything else.
Yes, there is, and people need to learn how to do that. And horticulturists that are studying the engineering need to know how to do that. They need to know how to grow plants in greenhouses too.
Yeah, that's very true. Well, and I think you and I were fortunate in a lot of ways that we got a lot of the, whether it was at the family level growing up or at the university level or just in our careers, we've had a lot of the applied science. Like we've learned how to do that stuff, but
well, we didn't have to wait until we were 22 to learn how to use a shovel.
That's very true.
Or a broom.
That's very true. Oh, yeah. So I think that there's, and one thing that I think we do a good job of in our applied horticulture fields is not just delivering information. We do that, right? We there's a lot of science. It's real science, and people don't think about it that way, but we do a lot of real science. If you've really looked at the whole, people are like, oh, photosynthesis, they turn light into food, whatever, sugar, which is true. But if you look at that whole process, it's incredibly complicated.
Oh, photosynthesis is so complicated.
And in fact, at my, not my defense, my brain just went blank too. No, my comprehensive exams, they pretty much asked me, tell me about photosynthesis. And my brain was like, nope, just gone. It was just gone. I whiffed, swung 3 times and missed every time. So it's complicated. But so we teach that, but I think we do a good job of teaching or trying our best to teach our students how to actually apply that information, how to actually use it, to think critically about what we're giving them, and develop actual life skills. I think that's kind of a big thing.
I do too. And it's not just the concept of photosynthesis, it's how it affects the plant. If it's not photosynthesizing, then what's it doing and why is it doing it?
Yeah, and how does the environment around it
affect that?
Right. And so not just here's the chemical formula and process, but
right. It's all the things that go into it or come out of it.
Exactly. If it's warmer, if it's colder, if it's shadier or sunnier, what does that do to that process? So that's interesting. I want to kind of wrap up. We'll change gears just a little bit, but I want to wrap up a little bit by talking about some of the ornamental horticulture research that you're doing. You're leading this ornamental horticulture research group, I hear at Texas Tech. So talk a little bit about that. Tell me what does that involve? What are you trying to do?
Well, ornamental horticulture is also losing people's interest, and I just don't understand why. I love ornamental horticulture. I am an ornamental horticulturist, and that means that I like to grow plants for their ornamental use, for their beauty, and there is a great need for that. So I started this ornamental horticulture research group. It's got graduate students, it's got PhDs and others involved in it. We do research with our trial gardens, and we also do research with lavender, and we're doing research with wildflowers.
Okay. Well, and I think the work that y'all do with wildflowers is really interesting because it's, people are like, oh, they're just wildflowers. No, I mean, but we improve them. We figure out which ones are bigger and better. And do you know how many releases we have out in the industry?
I know that Cynthia's released at least 3 or 4.
Yeah. So that means, you go in.
It could be up to 5. And I think that we've got 4 right now that are really close to being released. And they are true wildflower selections and improvements. It's still a wildflower.
Yeah.
So we haven't lost that. But it's either got longer blooming characteristics or fits the garden better somehow.
Yeah, it's more, no, that's really cool. You take those traits of toughness that you think of in a wildflower, that it'll grow anywhere on native rainfall, and you figure out how to make it fill that niche better in the landscape. Because, people don't know. They go to the box store and look at flowers, and it may be the toughest little plant in the world, but if the flowers aren't big and impressive, and if it doesn't look great, it's not going to get bought.
They're not going to buy it.
It's just,
unless they know about it. And that's something that else that we want to do with the Ornamental Horticulture Research Group is educate. We want people to be able to see things. We want to have our field days like we just had.
Yeah.
We want to have farm field days where people can come out and see the wildflowers growing in their natural environment.
Yeah. Well, and that's such a big deal too, because it's, I think people joke a lot that, you go to the grocery store and you ask someone, where does the milk, or you ask someone where does their milk come from? And they say the grocery store. And, that's tongue in cheek or whatever. But I think that's very much true in the landscape industry too. It's like, well, where does this plant grow? Like, well, at blue or orange box store, right? Or the nursery or wherever. And I just picked it up there and that's where it came from. That's where it started. When, I think folks don't understand that we found these, not you and I necessarily, but like horticulturists found these plants out in nature and said this would fit in the landscape and improved it. And through years and years of selection, we come up with the beautiful plants you see at the garden center.
That's correct. And from my trial gardens here and from the wildflower gardens, they're huge pollinator gardens.
Yeah.
They are huge. We have bumblebees, we have native honeybees, we have butterflies, we have hummingbirds, just hundreds and hundreds of pollinators covering our plants all the time.
All the time. And, we talked about how the plants are the bottom rung of our ecosystem. Well, pollinators are probably step 2, right? Without those plants, without those pollinators, we don't eat, we don't breathe, we don't do all that stuff. And so, I think being able to maintain attractive landscapes that are still pollinator friendly and that are still, because a native pollinator, there are some that are generalists that'll go and forage on anything, but some of them need those native plants, those wildflowers. That's what they feed on, and that's it. So even if they're improved in the landscape, they're still that plant.
That's right.
I think that's really cool. I think that's really awesome. And so if you are local in Lubbock, or if you ever come through Lubbock, definitely come visit our trial gardens here at the Tech Greenhouse on campus and the Tech Garden on campus, because Russ and his crew do a lot of work maintaining that and picking or taking the selections that were sent and implementing them well and all of those things. So the last thing I want to ask you before we wrap up, we've done about half an hour so far, but where do you see this industry going? Whether it's on the ornamental side or the food production side or whatever side you're most comfortable talking about, like in 10 years, what is our role as horticulturists look like? Where do we go from here?
I've thought a lot about that, and at one point, I'll be honest, I really thought that maybe we would all disappear like the dinosaurs. But I think global change, I think water restrictions are actually going to make us viable again and make applied horticulture very important, because without applied horticulturists that know what can grow under extreme circumstances, then we're all just living in a desert.
Yeah.
And deserts are okay if you have an oasis.
Right.
And if we have just a little bit of water and if we use it wisely, then we can still have really beautiful yards, really beautiful flowers, and a nice environment to live in. But if we're not careful, then it's going to end up like the salt flats in California, and people don't live there.
No, it's true. Yeah, it just turns into desert, like you said. It turns into nothing. And one of the things we talk about is like the hotter it gets, the hotter it gets. The more desert there is, the more desert you get. And like you said, these high value crops and these tough crops that can live in extreme conditions are so important. We're ending up with, or there's more and more people that need to eat, right, and need to breathe and need to have some quality of life. So I agree with you. I think that, I think that's kind of a scary and sad thought that there was a chance that, maybe this won't be a thing that's done anymore and disappear. But no, I think I agree with you that we're still very relevant and that we'll continue to be I hope so anyway. I hope that we kind of turn that corner and people care about plants and things again.
I think so. It's real funny. You see a lot of older people out really appreciating the plants. And all the kids do.
Yeah.
It's just that people who are so busy with their life that they don't take time to enjoy their life. And if they would spend just a little bit more time with nature and what's out there, I think they'd benefit so much more from it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's probably a good positive note to end on, that, go outside.
Go outside.
Just spend some time in the garden, or come walk around ours sometime. So wrapping up, is there anything that you want to plug real quick? Any projects or anything like that we haven't discussed?
Just keep an eye on the gardens. Vikram and I are really excited about what we're doing here. We hope to start a video podcast at some point, and we'll be interviewing gardeners in town and around, and I hope that that works out. But come see us, come see what's going on, and tell others. We hope to have Christmas lights up in the garden this year. In the spring, we're planning to do another field day. It's hard to get people interested in a fall field day because they've worked hard all summer. It's been hot and they don't want to think about it. And so in the spring, maybe we can catch them when they're fresh. And then coming back in the next fall, we hope to have some pumpkins out here and a lot going on. So it's going to be a year of fun at the greenhouse. So just think about it and come see us.
All right. Hey, thanks for coming on, Russ. I really appreciate it. And we'll get you on again at some point, probably coming up on the spring field day and stuff like that.
That'd be great.
All right. Thanks for listening, as always. Listen to where you can find us and all the info in the outro segment, and we will see you next time. Like past Vikram said, that dear sweet summer child, thanks for listening. You are the very best. Thanks to the Department of Plant and Soil Science here at Texas Tech University for all their support and for believing in this little podcast and just seeing the vision. Thanks also to Russ Plowman for being on, for chatting about his experience with all of us. You can find his information and more information about the Ornamental Horticulture Research Group in the show notes. Thank most of all to you, dear listener. We couldn't do what we do, and it wouldn't be any fun to do so without you. You get a special bonus treat next week. We're actually going to do a bonus episode a week from today on Christmas Eve. I don't want to ruin the surprise, but the special guest is someone that is near and dear to my heart. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of everything we do, and I will see you 7 days from today on Christmas Eve, December 24th. Keep being really cool plant people.